Welcome to Drumbeats, the must-listen-to podcast for investors interested in Indigenous investment in Canada. Born from the Canadian Indigenous Investment Summit, the show focuses on the intersection of Indigenous economic strategies and investment opportunities. I'm Mark Magnacca, and my co-hosts Robert Brant and I are joined today by Eva Clayton, the president of the Nisga'a Nation. They have a very special place in the history of the Indigenous peoples in Canada. They are the first nation to have negotiated a modern-day treaty with Canada and the province of British Columbia. They have also been very active in developing and monetizing their resources. Join us as we explore how these critical conversations are reshaping economic development across Canada.
Well, good morning and welcome, Eva. What a pleasure to have you here in London.
Thank you. It's pleased to be here. Wow. Never been to London before.
Really? Oh, your first time. And you came because of the mining conference, Resourcing Tomorrow.
Yes. It was exciting. I just didn't get a chance to see London.
Oh, that's
I'll have to come back.
You'll definitely have to come back to our Indigenous Investment Summit in April next year.
Yes, for sure.
I understand yesterday you were at Guildhall. That's where the event you were at yesterday, which is part of the oldest part of London, because even the Romans were there. In front of Guildhall, underneath, there's an old Roman amphitheater. So that has been the center of London for thousands of years.
That's what Rob was telling us last night, but it was raining cats and dogs last night, so we didn't get a chance to look around until the end of the evening.
Well, we put on English weather for you.
I see that.
And you're initially from BC, so it's not too far.
And Eva, the Nisga'a Nation, you're the president, recently re-elected for a third term. Can you tell us a little bit about Nisga'a Nation?
Sure. The Nisga'a Nation is the first modern-day treaty, 2000. After many years of negotiating, our leadership who have since passed on. But in 2000, we left the Indian Act, so we thought. But we delved into Nisga'a government. Coming from a band council structure, what a challenge. And it still is a challenge today, but we are overcoming it. We have lawmaking authority, meaning that we can make legislation on Nisga'a lands. But whatever is in play for Canada and BC, who are treaty partners, their laws like the Criminal Code of Canada still applies. We don't have that. We have the authority to make laws on Nisga'a land. And we can introduce at some point in time the policing for our people on Nisga'a lands. But for the Nisga'a Nation, we have maybe 9,000 Nisga'a citizens registered. And we are made up of 4 communities, 4 village government. They're known as Kincolas under the Indian Act, Lakaltap, formerly known under the Indian Act as Greenville, and Gitwansel, formerly known as Canyon City under the Indian Act, and New Orleans as the larger of the 4 communities. Then we're made up of 3 urban locals who are established under the Societies Act of BC. But we have, they participate in the treaty in the government so that we continue to take care of our Nisga'a citizens in the urban areas. So there's 3 established urban centers for Nisga'a. That's Vancouver, being the bigger metropolis. Then Prince Rupert, Port Edward, and Terrace.
The Nisga'a people have been at the forefront of a lot of Indigenous initiatives in Canada over the years. Yes. British Columbia, most of the province is unceded territory, and the Canadian Supreme Court recognized back in 1973 a famous Canadian case initiated by the Nisga'a in 1973, the Calder case.
Yes, Dr. Frank Calder. For years, our people, in 1910, they created the Nisga'a Land Committee.
In 1910?
Long before that. But from my memory, 1910, what we called the Nisga'a Land Committee. And they took things to a level nobody even thought of, you know. When the headnaries coming to our lands, the Queen sending her missionaries, well, you can't tell us what to do on our land. These are some of our chiefs talking.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't tell us that what land we own. We own these lands. We've been here since time before memory.
Mm-hmm.
And from then, it really took off and carried on by our leaders over the decade, and to the point where we are now today. We have Nisga'a statesmen that we really need to look at creating that story for our nation. And I think that'll be a story indeed for our students. I continue to push that within our education, that we have to have our history told. The Nisga'a Nation has been silent for too long. One of the chief counselors this past term made a statement that was so profound in my mind. You know, why is the Nisga'a so secretive? The world doesn't even know too much about our Nisga'a Nation today as we exist under the modern day treaty process. We're the very first modern day treaty in 2000. And we have the treaty partners, Canada and BC, that we work together with. And we are still finding challenges along the way, because for Canada and BC, nobody told them how to treat modern day treaties and modern day treaty groups. Why are we still answering to the
Yes.
big grandfather in Ottawa, BC? But we are working towards a true self-government. We want to be sustainable financially. And this is why Nisga'a government has been very forward-thinking. We have been visionaries in what we want to do for our nation. Last night at the resourcing conference, Resourcing Tomorrow, I believe it was, Mining and Money, the Nisga'a Nation received an award for innovative forward thinking.
The ESG initiative of the year in the industry. Yeah,
Initiative of the
congratulations.
year, yes.
Congratulations, because that's a global conference. Everybody's here, and
it's
Nisga'a Nation
amazing.
took that.
Yes.
Fantastic.
We're very happy with that. The work that we're doing is paying off. We're also, and I was explaining to Rob last night during dinner that the Nisga'a Nation has been faced with rebuilding our economy. We stood by the wayside when I think it was in the 70s, from what I remember when I was growing up, and into the 80s and somewhat into the 90s. We were standing by the wayside. We were observers as they raped and pillaged our lands. And now today, you see the big change around where it's the Indigenous people now are being consulted. No longer are we being left by the wayside, because we want to be able to manage prosperity, not poverty. And we have been forward thinking, where we had two projects, the LNG and the pipeline. We just purchased the pipeline.
That's the
50%.
Rupert.
Yeah, PRGT.
PRGT.
Yeah.
Prince Rupert Gas Transmission
Yes.
Pipeline for our audience.
Yes, Prince Rupert Gas Transmission. And the route and all of the work that we've done with our projects, these two projects, and we continue to do with Nations Royalty, we're very inclusive of the Indigenous groups that can be along the pipeline. We've been doing a lot of consultations with the Indigenous groups because we want to garner their support as opposed to dealing with it after. And that we want to look at giving them how should I put it? I said to Rob last night, piece of the pie, if you will. If there's piece of the pipeline going through lands of other Indigenous groups, they can perhaps look at becoming owners of that portion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
very forward-thinking and progressive.
Yes, we're working in that way, and at the same time, we know we have to get power. We have to power up the facility, the floating facility and the pipeline. So we're also doing work with.
Sorry, just the floating facility. Could you talk a bit more about that?
Okay. We call it Lisims LNG. That's a Nisga'a word.
What does that mean?
Coming from the Nass River, Lisims.
Okay.
The portion of it. The don't quote me on the actual meaning of it.
I'm sure
Okay,
one of our
I'll get
viewers will
that.
write in
They'll write in
and correct. As the
yes.
Nisga'a Nation follows the interview.
Yes.
Well,
So we're looking at, we know that there's going to be energy needed to power up the LNG facility. It's going to be a floating facility in Wilmillet North, I think, of Kingold. Work has been undergoing that. I think we're in the environmental stages, moving towards the final environmental stages of that project. And then we have the pipeline. So, because Nisga'a Nation is involved with all of these projects and we want to be a part of the solution to the global climate concerns, Nisga'a Nation is a founding member of the First Nations Climate Initiative in BC. We do a lot of work out at Tetra Carthy in Vancouver. Okay. We work alongside Alex Grybowski and David Nicolason. Mm-hmm. And they're doing a lot of work with the Cool.
The Cool Power Initiative?
Yeah, the Power Initiative. Mm-hmm. And we recognize that there needs to be, and the province recognizes that we need to have that kind of energy to power up the projects.
Clean energy.
Yes, the clean energy. And the nation became involved with the First Nations Climate Initiative so that we can be having a say in policy development when it comes to clean energy. And we are looking at that. The nation also wants to look at helping with getting the Asian countries out of the fossil fuels back east.
Yes.
Eva, you talked about challenges and resiliency. Would you tell us a little bit about your own personal background, where you grew up, how you grew up, and how that maybe shaped you to become the leader you are today?
Okay, for sure. I attribute all my teachings to how I grew up. Went to Indian day school. Then my father passed away at a very young age. I was about 5 or 6 and I was sent to residential school. Mm-hmm. After residential school, I went to the boarding home program, what they call the Indian boarding home program. And so 3 categories of school I participated in under the Indian Act. And what a challenge it must have been for my mom. She had 6 of us, and she was a single mother at a very young age, wow. 30. And so I became she had to go after 3 jobs to look after us.
Wow.
She was taken out of school in grade 8, and when she was about in her latter part of the 40s, early 50s, she went back to school.
Great.
And she worked for the federal government.
Wow.
I get a lot of initiative from my mother. Her strength is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Is she still alive today?
No, she passed on. About maybe 2-3 years ago, but she never backed down. And we just don't back down when you're looking at challenges. So when she put us into, made sure we are all educated. There's 6 children, we're all educated. We all graduated. And did our own thing. My oldest brother is an electrician. Then I went into BCIT, BCBS, and BCBS no longer exists. It was the British Columbia Vocational School.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what was known then. So I went there, I did my education, and who knew that all of this was going to be my destiny. Because after I did all of that, I moved back home because first of all, I got the experience. I worked with United Native Nations. I worked for the BC Forum. These groups no longer exist now, but they were in the forefront of getting recognition for Indigenous people back then in all areas. So I went back to work with the Nisga'a Nation, and I worked with the Nisga'a Tribal Council. I was the very first secretary, paid secretary, because the Nisga'a Nation was pursuing the land question, the Nisga'a land question, on Nisga'a public funds. And it wasn't until the early 80s that Canada introduced that loan. We could take out a loan through our land question.
Right. Right.
Yeah, for Indigenous people.
Then they gave you the funding to be able to solve the problem that actually was
that's
created partly by
them. Yeah,
them and the
yes.
monarchy.
So they recognized that loan payment was reimbursed to the Nisga'a. Nisga'a they were paying it off. And so somewhere along the line, they recognized that, geez, we had the Indigenous people paying for problems that were also caused by them. So it was reinstated, reimbursed, the funding, went back to the people.
Sounds like a difficult upbringing or challenging one to lose your father at that young of age, to have your mother having to work
Yes.
3 jobs and be sent to school, but it has made you, it shaped you, and you've taken those,
Yeah.
the best of those lessons.
I was saying to Rob last night, I was about 5, I think, when I went to residential school. My mother's brother was 3. I come from a family of residential school survivors.
And with the residential schools, you then lived away from home.
Yes.
Yes, which, 3 and 5.
Right?
Just traumatic. And here you are today, though.
Yeah.
The president
Sweet
of,
guy.
of your nation, right? Re-elected again.
Yes.
This sounds like Margaret Thatcher going on and on and on, right?
When he used to say that, I have a friend in Prince George, Chief Harley Chingy. He always calls me the Iron Lady.
Oh, there we go. We have the Iron Lady. Fantastic. And you went at the mining conference last night. Makes sense. The Iron Lady got the award for SDG.
Yes, it was really incredible meeting all of these people.
It was a big gathering, very senior mining leaders at the conference and at the dinner last night to see your award.
Yeah.
Gina Reinhardt from Australia there, Robert Friedland there and spoke, one of the most senior leaders in mining, and Eva was there representing Nisga'a Nation and winning industry-wide awards. So congratulations again.
Thank you.
So the Nisga'a Nation is on the map in the city of London, and from last night with the global mining community. So you've achieved one of your objectives. You were mentioning earlier in the conversation, somebody said nobody knows about the Nisga'a Nation.
Yes.
And now look at what you're achieving. And we hope, understand you'll be with us in next year, 2025, for the Canadian Indigenous Investment Summit, and continue this, raising awareness of the Nisga'a Nation, the First Nations to sign a modern treaty in Canada. Fantastic.
I was just mentioning it to the team this morning that we're looking forward to coming back, and that was the one at the Canadian Investment Conference, the summit you mentioned. And I said to the guys, I said, we're going to have to look at other opportunities we may want to pursue while we're in London.
Absolutely. With international partners.
Yes.
That's the whole purpose of the conference. And so, I would look forward to that and love to have you participate in that. Do you want to talk a little bit about the initiative that you won the award for?
Yes, the Nation's Royalty, the Nisga'a Nation, that after it was presented by Frank Justra. Frank Justra approached the Nisga'a Nation with the idea of the Nation's Royalty, Indigenous owned.
And for those who don't know, Frank Justra is probably well known in the City of London, but a Canadian billionaire investor and behind a lot of resource companies over the years. And he has partnered with Nisga'a Nation in this new company called Nation's Royalty. Yes.
It's going to be the largest Indigenous-owned public company. It's listed. And right now, Nation's Royalty is doing a lot of the work to market, sell, and brand Nation's Royalty to meet with Indigenous peoples, not just in Canada, but globally we're looking at. And we have been looking at going outside. We had Cody just go to, I think it was Japan. So we're going to be going all over the place to market that. And
Nisga'a Nation's owns 77% of the equity, the common shares of Nation's Royalty?
Yes, thank you. We do have 77% ownership of the equity.
So we're going to be talking to Cody Penner of Nation's Royalty at an upcoming in an upcoming episode. So
I think that'll be our first conversation in 2025.
That's right. That's right.
That's great.
Thank you for your time today. I mean, it is absolutely wonderful to have you here in the City of London. And as Rob and I are both Canadians as well, it's very special to have the President of Nisga'a Nation, which is the first modern treaty, Canada, here, and helping hopefully put the Nisga'a Nation on the map and top of mind for more and more people around the world.
Yes.
So that is really something, and clearly your leadership has helped your people get to where they are today, and you're standing on the shoulders of obviously great men and women who brought you here today, not just from your family, but the leaders from the council. And when you think of 1910, they started this issue over 110 years. If only they could see today what their early initiatives have started. That's inspiring for all Canadians, and I think all Indigenous peoples around the world.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I want to say, Nisga'a, thank you very much for taking the time out of a busy schedule and a visit to London to drop by our offices here in London and talk to us a little bit about things that are going on in Nisga'a Nation. Congratulations again on the award.
Thank you.
And safe travels back to Canada.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
And we wish you, of course, and your family a very Merry Christmas.
Oh, yes, for sure. Merry Christmas.
That's all for today. A big thank you to Eva Clayton for sharing her insights. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe and leave a review on our YouTube channel at Drumbeats Podcast. You can also follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more platforms listed in the description. Mark your calendars for the 2025 summit, which will take place on the 10th of April next year. Thanks for listening to Drumbeats. Until next time, I'm Mark Magnacca.